video of the lecture number 2. I'm starting on slide 21. Let's talk about balance, which is a sense of equilibrium achieved through implied weight, attention, or attraction by multiplying the elements within an artwork to achieve unity. It's in a sense of equilibrium, right? The eye, our eye as a viewer, seeks balance within an image. There's a few kinds of balance that we're going to talk about: symmetry, approximate symmetry, asymmetry, and radial symmetry. Balance can be found in everyday situations. We require balance to stand, to walk, to ride a bike. You can see from these different poses in the statues how the distribution of their weight is creating a balance. And in this statue on the very right, we have what's called contrapposto, which is putting all your weight on one leg, which gives you a certain skeletal balance here. Okay, we have bilateral balance on the left and radial balance on the right. Here we have an axis line. Everything on this side of the axis line is mirrored on this side, which means that they are equal, they are symmetrical. Here we have radial balance. You can see how these shapes that are coming out of the center point are rotated around in a circle, which is referred to as radial. Think of radial as circular. That will help you in your quizzes and the definitions. Radial symmetry is a type of balance in which the parts of an object or picture are arranged to radiate from the center point. Think of some objects that might be natural, handmade, man-made, in nature or not in nature, that actually do have radial symmetry. So let's talk about that in the comments. What are some things that you might, some examples of radial symmetry? Just as you have symmetry, you have asymmetry, which is the opposite of symmetry. It's an antonym. It does not mean the same thing, right? Here we have the axis line, and this is asymmetrical. Van Gogh's Starry Night. This is creating visual tension. We have a lot of diagonal movement here that's happening. So here's a question. We've got this large, dark shape that has a lot of weight in value, it's dark, and also weight in size because it's quite large. So what is it on this side of the axis line that is balancing this large, dark shape? This could be something that is different or contrasting in value, in color, in position, in size. So let's put that in the comments below. What on this side is balancing out this heavy shape here? Let's talk about proportion, which is a comparative relationship between the parts of a whole. So everyone take your hand and put it up to your face, and let's see how big is your hand in proportion to your face. It should probably be about the same size as your face. Scale is a component of proportion that's used to determining the relationship between two or more things. So for instance, the Statue of Liberty's scale is revealed when it's seen next to a car. Think of Godzilla next to a giant building and how large Godzilla looks in proportion to everything around it. So we've got two different types of scale: intimate scale and monumental scale. Proportion can also be thought of as ratios, something that is concentrated. You make a canned orange juice and you add water, what's the proportion of the concentrate, right? The powder, the mixture with the water. What is the proportion? What's the ratio of that? These two circles are actually the same exact size, but one looks very cramped because it's next to, in proportion with something equal to it, whereas another circle does not look cramped. So this is a good example of proportion. We've got 3 different canvases here. Small in a large, a medium in a large, and a large on a large. Which canvas do you think makes the best use of its space? So, question for below, comments below. Which one do you think makes the best use of space according to the size, the proportion, the placement, the negative space, and the composition? Intimate scale is zooming in to show intimacy. This is Georgia O'Keeffe's Red Poppy, and because we're so zoomed in, we've got some cropping that's happening, which kind of creates a little bit of tension. It's so big that it's bleeding outside of the edges, and we can really see this inside of the flower to get really close up. Whereas monumental scale is the exact opposite. Larger than human scale, it's intended to be impressive, showing an object in proportion with other shot objects to give a massive, giant feeling. A monumental scale can be large, it commands authority, it grabs attention, it can be aggressive or confrontational, while intimate scale, think of intimacy. We've got a one-on-one relationship. We're really getting close. We're really looking at the details. It can be typically whimsical, very detailed. Dominance, hierarchy, emphasis, and focal point, they all mean the same thing. And we're going to achieve them in different ways. Dominance can be achieved through scale, isolating certain things, thinking about the negative space around something, using direction, movement, using high and low contrasts, strong color intensities next to low color intensities. These are all ways to achieve focal points or dominance. So here we have 3 figures. Which part of the image has the focal point? Where is the dominance in this image, and how is it being achieved? What are the vocabulary words that are being used here to achieve dominance? This is a painting by Norman Rockwell. Same question. Where is the focal point here, and why? How does Norman Rockwell achieve this focal point? Here we have another one, Mark Rady, Day at the Beach, 1988. Where is the focal point? Where is the dominance? And how is that being achieved? Why are we looking at it? Why is our eye being drawn to that area? Where is the focal point here? Is there an area that I'm looking at more than others? No, not really. Everything is a large mishmash of overall pattern. Pattern usually doesn't really have a focal point, which is why it's very busy. I don't really see an area of larger scale. Everything kind of is the same size. I don't really see one area that's darker or lighter than the other. Let's talk about movement, which is when your eye is traveling, directed by a pathway in a work of art or a picture. A diagonal, when I'm moving diagonally, it creates a lot of strong visual movement. Tension plus direction equals motion, repetitive elements suggest direction and movement, and symmetry is kind of the opposite. We're very still, very stable, very equal from side to side, creates stillness and calmness. So here we have a lot of tension and direction, a lot of movement in the body language. We're traveling in the ways that the bodies are moving here. We've got a strong diagonal, it creates a lot of tension, a lot of movement. You'll also notice here where there's a character or a figure, where they're looking with their eyes, that's kind of where we might look. We are trying to see what they are seeing. We've got these telephone cords that are really drawing us in to the viewer, and we're also kind of going in a circular movement, circular composition here. Look at how they're looking off the page. It creates some tension because we can't really see what it is that they're looking at, and look at her facial expression, her full body expression, her hand, the way her hand is on her face. How does she look here? What's going on in her head? And the fact that she's looking to an ambiguous place, it makes us have some tension. All right, here we've got a lot of repetition. Look at all of these figures. They are the exact same in scale, right? They have the same proportions, and they're being repeated over and over again. They have the same dress, the same hair. Everything about them is very repetitive. They're going in this general direction, and the overlapping is kind of creating a closure of a larger shape. Okay, so that is the end of this section. We covered slides 21, let's just say 19 to 43, so this is the end of this section of the lecture.